There's always somebody who has a good idea, sometimes a better idea, sometimes a great idea, sometimes it's even a borrowed idea. And as one writer said to me, all great writers are thieves. They steal other ideas. Well, we're not talking about anything like that, but as creator entrepreneurs, we're trying to create an idea and create a reality and create something that actually might make the world a little bit better a place for not only yourself, but perhaps even for others. A rare quality these days, and a gentleman who has been doing that a lot, is a good friend of mine named David Wendt. And he knows how to fly, and he knows how to tell stories, and he knows how to live by faith, and he does some good around the world. So, David, tell us your story and tell us what you got to show us.
Well, thanks, Dan. My name is Dave Wendt, and I grew up west of Excelsior, Minnesota, watching Sky King on television apprehend bad guys in black hats using his personal aircraft named the Songbird, with his daughter Penny and his son Clipper on a black and white television screen. That was my early introduction into the exciting world of aviation. Many of our neighbors at the time were pilots with Northwest Orient Airlines. If anybody remembers that, out of Minneapolis, where it started. I decided early in life that those pilots enjoyed a pretty cool life, flying 8 days a month and having 22 days off to enjoy fishing, hunting, golf, or whatever else they decided to do. A coworker at the time became a private pilot, and he offered me, quote unquote, a free ride in his airplane. And I was hooked on flying right then. I signed up at Lakeland Aviation, Crystal Airport in north of Minneapolis, and earned my private pilot's license. After my freshman year at St. John's University, Collegeville, Minnesota, who has the winningest football coach of all time, who will never be exceeded in that, I achieved my commercial pilot's license, and I was surprised to get help. A next-door neighbor, a captain with Northwest Airlines, introduced me to a training officer at Northwest Airlines who asked me to take a trial written exam. Following the trial exam, he pronounced me ready to go to the Federal Aviation Agency and test for the commercial pilot's license. Needless to say, after his preparation, I got a very high score on the commercial written exam. The flight test was a snap, and I passed the FAA ride with no problem. In order to accumulate the required 200 hours for the commercial pilot's license, I purchased 1/3 of an ownership of an Aranca Champion aircraft for $300. All three of the owners achieved their commercial certificates, and we eventually sold the aircraft for $400 a share, making a profit of 25% our early investment. Because of a hunting accident and because my eyes were not 20/20, I could not qualify for a military flying job. I was in the Army ROTC at St. John's, so I accepted a 1Y deferment and waived my commission as second lieutenant. I enjoyed a brief stint flying job, that is, flying in Ontario, Canada. And in order to perform those duties, I acquired a float plane license that's good both in the United States and Canada. Finally, when summer ended, I returned to Minnesota and decided I had to get a real job. I briefly considered a job as a spray pilot, crop duster, but upon understanding the dangers, I decided the permanent disability exposure was not worth the potential income. I was hired by the United States Gypsum Company, USG, and assigned to a sales territory based in Rapid City, South Dakota. I spent a lot of time hanging around pilots at Ellsworth Air Force Base and the municipal airport at Rapid City, South Dakota. I occasionally had flights to the Viking football games, Minneapolis, to view the beloved purple and gold purple people eaters who remain famous for appearing in 4 Super Bowl games under Bud Grant, legendary and Hall of Fame coach. Unfortunately, the team has lost at each appearance. My entry in the commercial insurance business came when I met a regional sales manager for National Insurance Underwriters, John Weber, who was flying a Beach Bonanza. I approached him for a job flying his aircraft. He practically hired me on the spot and turned me into one of his field team members, calling on fixed base operators and insuring those crop dusters, aka spray pilots. That job lasted until I got married, and I realized my dream job of flying a Bonanza and living and drinking at conventions on the road would soon end my new marriage. I then learned that my newfound career of insurance sales had many other benefits, and I could be at home with my wife for dinner every night, and life could be good. I found that I could stay active in aviation in other ways, and I started a quote-unquote leaseback investment group that owned 4 aircraft. We leased the aircraft to an operator, Kurt Erickson, in St. Paul, who had a very successful training operation at the St. Paul downtown airport. It was a very lucrative operation, with the Internal Revenue Service sending us $25,000 for a tax shelter. I'm currently a member of the Flying Club in Crystal Airport, north of Minneapolis, and we own and operate 4 aircraft. All have paid for. It's $1.5 million operation, and we have $500,000 in the bank. I also enjoy co-leading a group of primarily instrument-rated pilots, many airline retired pilots and military pilots, under an organization called IMC, which is part of the Experimental Aircraft Association in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. It enjoys 1 million visitors every year, barring COVID, and we'll get back to it soon. And that's my story. Thank you.
And now you are doing all kinds of things somewhat related. And
yes.
you are now, you still do some of that insurance because David is kind of like another friend of mine. He said this when he reached his 70th birthday. He said, "You know what, Stan? You know why I have to keep working?" And I said, "Well, why?" He said, "Stan, whenever I stopped working, I got in trouble."
That's true.
And so David won't get in bad trouble, but he will always keep messing around and making good things happen. And so, Dave, right. I know that you have a project right now that is taking part of your time, and it's kind of related to your faith and passion and what you feel about this good country and this great place. So tell us about the project that you're currently making happen.
Well, 2 come to mind, Stan. One is I fly angel flight missions with pilots who have the 2 things you need to give back. They have time and they have money. And these are people who, and we have this in common. Unfortunately, I lost my late wife 10 years ago, and as did this other gentleman. And he bought a new airplane, and he's now 83 years old. And I got a new wife. And in my opinion, the airplane and the wife cost about the same. So I'm still active in the insurance business. It wouldn't have to be, but I enjoy it so much. And that leads me to working with young people. And looking forward, I don't think young people today are going to have the same opportunities to accumulate wealth that my generation had. So they're going to have to be very, very judicious with money that they hope to invest. And so we're trying to work a system. And of course, one of the worst things, as Woody Allen said, is sitting next to a life insurance agent on an airplane. And if you ever want to be left alone anywhere, just say, I sell life insurance, and believe me, it'll get real quiet. So that holds true for young people. And so we're recommending that they do two things. One is Dave Ramsey, who has a syndicated radio show, quite successful. And we use Dave Ramsey for budgeting. He does the best job with budgeting and teaching people how to save money that we've ever experienced. But lately, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad author, Robert Kiyosaki, has come out with a online game called Cash Flow. And I was introduced to that, ironically, by my personal trainer, who is a behavioral change expert. And we're working together in a partnership to do seminars. So what we do is we play the cash flow game with interested people and make saving and investing fun. And I have an offer out to my niece right now that if she'll humor me, she works for the NTSB in Washington, D.C. She's raising two young men on her own. And she's very concerned about saving for their college and her own retirement. So twice a month for 1 hour, we play the cash flow game, and I'm teaching her investing and savings using that. And for humoring me, I send her a check if she stays online for 1 hour with me, $250. If she beats me, she gets a bonus of $250. So it's a $500 gig but so far she can't beat me. So I'm in pretty good shape. And that's my latest involvement, Sam.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
One of the things that has, challenged me is just exactly that. For instance, next door to our house, lady just moved in, and show the shortness of life, they had just retired and bought this house, fixer-upper next door. And 4 months after they bought the house, he just died.
Yep.
And that was the expression she used. He wasn't sick.
Right.
He just died. And she was a nurse. And so, she'd done some right. So she's fixing her house up, and then she's told me she was going to perhaps buy another one if she could. But here was the interesting story, and I love this because you could comment on it. There was a young man, obviously he's in his 19, 20, was working around the house, and I just saw him. And out in the side there was a nice F-250 rig with a little trailer. And I went out and I asked him, and he said, "Well, I'll tell you the deal. I never liked college very much." I knew that because I didn't like high school very much, but I knew it was important. And so I looked at the situation, and I went to my dad and said, "Dad, you know how good I am around the house." And he was. He said, "Would you give me a year's tuition so I can buy a truck and a trailer and start my own handyman business?" That's exactly what he's doing. And the last time I saw him, he already had a kid working for him.
Yeah.
And I talked to him, and he said, "Well, if I ever go back to college," he said, "I'll know exactly why I'm going back to college, at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and he smiled. And he said, "You know what? Things always break, so I'll always have a job."
Yeah, that's cool.
Isn't
yeah.
that, and that's like what you're kind of talking about, teaching kids, young people.
Right.
And at our age, they're all kids.
Yeah, that's right.
How to make that happen.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no, that's a good story.
Well,
that's cool.
And one more thing, just on the Mercy flights. Just give us, in closing, a little bit of how that works for people, because when I mentioned that, there was a lady in our church who simply said, well, I've heard of that, Stan, because I mentioned it, I talked to you, and she said, what really is that Mercy flight? So how about closing up by telling us a little bit about how that works and how that can be helpful to people?
Okay. You have to qualify on means. You can't be the owner of the Dallas Mavericks and qualify. But there are 3 Angel Flight divisions. It's pretty simple. It's Angel Flight West, Angel Flight Central, and Angel Flight Northeast. And you just go on the internet and Google Angel Flight, and it's under the Compassion Pilot section, or it's a Compassion Flight. And you put down your situation, where you live, so that they know what area. We work with Angel Flight Central, and they're headquartered in Kansas City, Missouri. And you have to put in a profile about yourself. And then you need the doctor's diagnosis. And usually it's for cancer, surgery, or children come into Gillette Children's Hospital in Minneapolis. And so then when you have the need to go to the hospital, and usually driving it's either too far to drive, or you don't have the money to go on an airline, or the airline will not accept you. You now qualify for a private aircraft ride, and we provide qualified pilots and their airplane at absolutely no charge to the patient. And we pick them up at their home airport. Generally, we have a lot of flights: Watertown, South Dakota; Alexandria, Minnesota; Fargo, North Dakota; Sioux Falls, South Dakota; Sioux City, Iowa. And then we fly to Rochester, Mayo, because Rochester's a big center, pretty well known in the Midwest. And that's basically it. I have 2 scheduled, one in June and one coming up in about 25 days. And I use one of my other partners is a captain with Sun Country Airlines, and we fly a twin-engine airplane on that one for safety purposes. But there's absolutely no charge, and social workers generally at hospitals know about Angel Flight, and they know who qualifies. And I've done about 32 of them, and I've met some wonderful people and seen some, very interesting things. There are YouTube videos out on Angel Flight, and it shows patients, and it's pretty easy to find it, and people can find it, but you have to qualify economically.
And it is the proverbial, you give people their wings, right?
Yeah. Actually, a couple of our pilots do have wings that they give to the kids.
Oh, good.
And they get to wear a headset, and they can listen to the pilot talk to air traffic control. And it's quite an experience, actually. We've heard the moms say that it's the highlight a lot of times they lose a child or they lose the patient. But they say the highlight of the whole thing was the angel flight trip in a private aircraft. So,
well, that I'm thinking of a very dear child near to me who's going through some difficulties, and I'm getting a little teary about that. But that's really neat. What a neat thing.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
This guy is David Wendt, and if you need a flight, he might help you out. If you need insurance, he'll probably help you out. But most of all, he's just a man with good ideas. So, David, thank you for being a creator entrepreneur, being a good friend of mine, and for many other people. Thank you for your time. We appreciate your story. Take care.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay.
See you.
And now, indeed, my friend, it's your turn. That's right, it's your turn to be on the radio, to tell your story, share your wisdom, and show us how good stuff can be done by good people. We often claim now that it is, in the midst of all this chaos and corruption all around us, that it is the spirit force-led creator entrepreneur. They're going to save American and maybe Western civilization, one creative good act at a time. And so we need to be more of them doing more good things. And I'd love to hear your story, so why don't you kind of raise your hand right now, and then when you put it down, send me an email at stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com, and I'm going to be, hey, why don't you join us on the radio? Just need a little bit of courage, a good story to tell, and a telephone, and we can make it happen just for you and for all of the good people who will hear your wisdom, insight, and truth, and maybe a touch of humor along the way. All the best and blessings to you. Take care. Bye for now.